Hey guys, in this video I'm going to share with you how I set up my QNAP NAS drives, and this guide applies to big super beast mode NAS drives all the way to the little Tichuichi, actually it's kind of big actually, a 4-bay NAS. Now this guide is the in-depth guide, so it's going to be a bit longer than normal. If you don't have much time, check out the link in the description below for the quick start guide, which includes the best of the best to get you up and running as quickly as possible. Alright, so the first thing you need to identify in one of these NAS drives, and that is the Ethernet port. Now I use this port to connect directly to my Mac, and I connect using one of these Thunderbolt 2 Ethernet adapters. This one goes up to 10 gigabit, so it's a good fast solid connection. However, there are cheaper adapters out there which give you 5 gigabit and even 1 gigabit if your NAS drive doesn't support 10 gigabit. The one thing I'd say is some adapters have fans in them and some adapters are fanless. So just make sure you get one that's comfortable in your work environment. And of course, the great thing about upgrading your NAS to 10 gigabit, if it doesn't have 10 gigabit out of the box, is that once you install an adapter, so I've got an adapter right here, it works out of the box. You don't need to install any drivers. The IP address is just listed when you connect them together. Alright, so in order to get one of these hard drives into this unit, you need to first take out the tray. So you pull it down like that, pull it up like this, and it just slots right out. Now, if you investigate the tray, you'll find these little slots on the side, and they actually come off. Once those are exposed, you can actually fit your hard drive in there and then reattach them and then slot it back in. I'm using here a 14 terabyte Iron Wolf Pro drive, and it goes with the connector facing opposite to the flap. Then we put these tabs back on, and it slots just like that, straight in. The flap goes down, and you can lock it into position by pushing this back up. And for other QNAP devices, this is how you do it. So on the side, make sure it's on the unlock position, and then this one slides right out. These are the hard drive trays. You just push down and pull, and they come right out. So now that I've got one drive in there, I'm gonna turn this baby on, set it up, and then I'll expand it with more drives to get a RAID system up and running. So I'm gonna put the power connector right in there and turn this baby on for the first time. Now, one thing I have to say, I wasn't expecting this, is really quiet out of the box. It's got two massive fans, but it's actually very, very, very quiet. I can barely hear it. I always thought the big 8-bay ones would be a lot noisier than the 4-bay ones, but it's just as quiet. I've only got one drive in there, so things may change. I'll be doing a proper noise test very soon, but so far it's a very, very quiet system. So right now, all we're gonna do, we're gonna wait until the system finishes loading. Right now it's loading the driver, please wait, all that stuff. Once it's ready, we're gonna get the IP address and connect to it on our computer. Now, once it's plugged in, you can go ahead and go to install.qnap.com or use your smartphone to scan this QR code. However, what I like to do is just tap on this screen, tap it again, and I actually get the IP address of this NAS unit. And I can type that into the web browser and set it up from there. And if you can't display the IP address, so on Mac, I use a free tool called Discovery, and I can see that it's 169.254.7.62. And it gives me all the IP addresses that are connected to my computer, so I can easily fish out which one is QNAP and connect to it directly in the web browser. On Windows, if you go into File Explorer, it should just be listed right there. So on Windows, inside File Explorer, you should be able to just go into Network and see your QNAP device. So for example, for me, QCairo over there, and it logs me straight in on the web. If it's not listed there, you can use a free tool which requires Java, Angry IP Scanner, and I'll tell you all the IP addresses on your network. So after installing Java, go into Control Panel and just search for Java up there. See Java 32-bit. And then you want to go into the update settings and disable check for updates automatically to stop that annoying prompt that it kind of gives you. I also disabled Java content for browsers because that is just going to slow down your computer, to be honest. What website uses Java in today's era? None. So we just hit start and it will go through all the IP addresses to let you know which ones are active. So for me, it completed it in 17 seconds. And if you just sort by ping, which is a response, you'll see all the IP addresses that are connected onto your network, including this one's my NAS 102. And you can connect to it, or you can go into command prompt, type in this little command, and it will list again all the IP addresses on your network. I personally like doing it manually, but you can of course use the software that QNAP give you out the box. And that's it. You launch the web browser, you go through the setup, and it's pretty easy from there. 254.595. Boom shakalaka, we are in to the installation guide. So let's jump in and do it. All right, so on the first screen, you got to give your NAS, your baby, your love a name. I'm going for Q872N, but you can call it whatever you like. This name is what you're going to use to connect in Finder or in Windows Explorer. So don't be too nasty about it. The first username you're going to be given is admin, and you just got to give yourself a nice little bit of a password. Set up your time. It's correctly detected that I'm in Brisbane, and synchronize with internet server is currently disabled because I'm connected directly to my computer, not a hub that has access to the internet. Don't worry, I'll show you how to set up internet access using a Wi-Fi dongle. Next up, you specify your IP address. Now for this, you can make it a static IP address because you don't want your IP addresses constantly changing. However, if you plug it into a network router, you probably want to leave it up to the router to assign you your IP address so it doesn't conflict with other devices. So for now, I'm gonna use a static IP address, and that's the one that's been given. Proceed. So you choose what kind of file services you want to use to start off with. Mac and Windows are the basic ones to go for. So I've got my name, I've got my setup, hit apply. It's now going to just delete all the data on my drive and go ahead and install QNAP's QTS software. And that is it. It's completed. Congratulations. You have set up your NAS drive. Everyone always says that QNAP is complicated, but as you just saw, easy as pie. But we're going to be customizing the hell out of this NAS drive. I'll be showing you the best settings and all that kind of stuff. But for now, let's log in. Got username and password. Remember me, secure login, so it uses HTTPS. And because it doesn't have a certificate that's authorized by servers on DNS, you need to click advanced and proceed. And now you're going to be inside QNAP's QTS amazingness. You get a privacy warning, and you have to read about the information that they collect. When you use QNAP services, you trust us with your data. QNAP believes privacy is a fundamental human right. Our products are designed to minimize the collection and use of data by using on-device processing wherever possible. Your QNAP device will never share any personal information without your permission. That's good to know. Now I transferred over my hard drive from my 8-bay NAS, so it fully launched up straight into that system. I didn't actually have to set it up, and as you can see, things look like they're set up just like before, and it looks like it's recognized that this disk, even though I've put it on bay 2, has come from my previous NAS drive, and the other disks are unformatted. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to unlock this volume. And that's it. Welcome to your main menu. You access more options here, access control panel there, App Center to download apps over there, and this is where you customize your profile. Get a bunch of launched windows. Don't worry about this one. This one says DNS server couldn't resolve. We're not plugged into a router, we're just plugged in direct to our Mac, so I don't need this warning. Next up is going to help you out setting up your drive. Lets you know that there's a couple of different options. There's storage pools or using it as a static volume. I always go for static because it's faster. However, if you want more safety, A storage pool is the way to go because it can have snapshots, record all your data's changes, and you can always undo and go in the past. Whereas for me, I like performance, so I go for static. Next, 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 next. And by default, it suggests that you do a new storage pool. So if you want maximum performance, and that's the guide I'm going to be giving you guys, because I do a lot of video editing, so I need as good as performance as I can get. I am going to set up as a static. However, in the past, I've used storage pools and they ran pretty well. I had no complaints. Data collection. Do you want to share your analytics with QNAP? That is a decision that you need to make yourself. I always personally just say no because my data's private, man. So you got a basic screen. This is storage and snapshots, and don't worry, if you close this window down, it will appear in either this main menu here, storage and snapshots, or let me just close down Help Center, and you can also get it in the main screen over there, storage and snapshots. So by default, your system is set up, but you don't actually have a folder you can access. In order to do that, you need to go into storage and snapshots and create a folder you can use. So I'm going to go ahead into the main storage menu, and rather than clicking storage pool here, I'm going to click on volume. And at the top, you get to choose if you want a static, thick, or thin volume. I always go for static because it's the fastest one. It says they give the best performance for random file access, up to 20% faster. Next, you select which drives you want to use for this folder. Now I only have one drive plugged in. I'm going to start off with one, and then I'm going to upgrade it to a RAID. You can of course plug in all your drives to start off with and just set up as a RAID to go from the beginning. But for me, because I want to just help out as much people as I can, maybe this is your first NAS drive and you've only got one hard drive to spare, follow this guide for now. So this one, RAID type is single, but if you're setting up as a multiple RAID, you can choose your RAID setup here. Personally, if you are going RAID, I always recommend RAID 6 because it allows you the most safest experience. It means 2 drives can fail without all of your data being lost. And make sure you check out my other video on RAID configurations for more details on that. Single. Give your volume a name, so just call it data vol 1, and choose bytes per in node. For me, this 8-bay NAS has 6 times 14. It can support 84 terabytes of data, so I'm going to select 32K because it's the smallest amount I can pick, which supports the maximum volume size of 128. For you, it depends on the hard drive you're using and how much slots you're going to need, but I find that 32K is pretty good. Also, make sure to click advanced. You get an alert threshold. For example, if you're eating up more than 80% of the storage, you're going to get a little beep and it's going to tell you, hey, you're using too much space. I don't use this feature, but you probably should leave it on. And encryption. Encryption is amazing and it works really fast on these QNAP NAS units. And what that means is, it means that when your data is saved on the disk, it's also saved encrypted, which means if someone steals your NAS unit, or steals your hard drives, it's going to be a lot harder for them to decode what the hell is on your drive. So I always use encryption as well. Of course, note, encryption does come at a cost. There is a slight performance penalty. For me, it's worth it. And check out my video comparing the RAID types and the encryption types to find out more details on the penalty over there. And you can tick that create shared folder on the volume. Basically, we're gonna create a new volume, but again, there's no shared folder inside, so you still can't access it. So I'm gonna go ahead and create my first share folder, and I'll call it shared. That's it. We're gonna be creating a 12.72 terabyte volume, which is a static volume, which means it's the fastest kind of volume you can create. We're gonna be configuring the file system to support up to 128 terabytes. And we're going to make it encrypted, and we're going to give a shared folder called shared. It's set up our shared folder now, and it's ready to connect to. However, it's optimizing the storage. It's going to be fun. Let's jump into Finder and try connecting to our NAS drive for the first time. So if you go into network on Mac, you should see the name of your NAS drive appear there, and you can just connect directly by double clicking on the name of your drive. You either want to connect using SMB or AFP. Type in your username, which is admin, and your password, and connect. So we've got access to home, homes, public, and shared, and web. So I want to connect into shared, which is your storage location that we made earlier. Let's fire up a disk speed test and see how fast this connection goes. There you go, 103 megabytes write, which is the maximum speed for 1 GBP. And 110 megabytes a second read. I'm now just going to be switching up to a 10 GBE adapter to see how fast it goes. 3, 2, 1, let's go. We're getting, what is it, over 250 megabytes a second. Right, and 490 megabytes a second read. So it's using the cache from the hard drive to get that data out of there. That's pretty much going as fast as the 5 GBE can give us. So let's switch over now to 10 GBE and see how fast we can go. After switching over to 10 GBE, hard drive performance was no longer limited at all by the networking bandwidth. However, I did find that SMB did perform faster than AFP connection-wise, especially since upgrading to Mojave. But of course, if you did bump up to a RAID 0 configuration or with an SSD, you'd hit performance speeds of around 1000 megabytes a second. Now, another thing I recommend you always do in storage and snapshots, go into your disks location, and this is the area you need to look at. So disk health allows you to run certain scans to ensure that your hard drive is healthy. So I have an Iron Wolf over here, and that gives me special Iron Wolf tools, so I can go ahead and test my drive. But more importantly, I can go ahead and set a schedule for the test to automatically run. And you can do this the same with the standard smart test. So if you go to smart information here, it tells you all the information about the drive. For example, I can see that I've got 0 retired blocks, which means 0 bad blocks. And in test, I can also run a complete test and a rapid test. The best part, however, is in settings, which kind of collates all different tests you can run. So you can set up an alarm. So for example, if your hard drive goes over 55 degrees, it will start beeping and letting you know. And you can set up a rapid test, a complete test, and you can set up daily analysis for your Iron Wolf drive if you have an Iron Wolf drive available. So for example, I like to run my rapid tests daily, and I run my complete tests monthly. And you can go ahead and set that up yourself. Furthermore, in global settings over here, you'll get to define not only the priority of your scrubbing speed, so usually I have mine in low speed, but you can also set up a RAID scrubbing schedule, and I set myself up to scrub it once a month and at 2 AM. Now, scrubbing does take a long time. It can even take a few days. So your hard drive will run slower while it is being scrubbed. However, if it's at low speed, it will take longer, but when you're using it, you won't suffer the slowness of scrubbing. However, on the inverse of that, if you set it to high speed, it's going to prioritize scrubbing as fast as possible at the cost of your data connection speed. So once a month, I scrub my data just to make sure that all the data and all the drives are valid. Let's go ahead and look into our first port of destination, which is the control panel. Now I have an in-depth guide on how to utilize this control panel and set it up for the most security, but for now let's just go and have a quick run through. You'll find that the software version is at the top here with the serial number of your device there and the processor. So I'm rocking a 4-core beast over here with 8 gigabytes of RAM. So inside general settings, you'll find an option called disable and hide multimedia functions. Enabling this enables something called indexing, and it does slow down your NAS drive ever so slightly, but it does give you the ability to install a photo library and all that stuff. But out of the box, by default, it is disabled, and that's probably a good thing. I also recommend you enable HTTPS to allow you to connect to the server without using HTTP. It's slightly more secure. And security settings do not allow QTS embedded iframes is a good thing. although you can have exclusions over here if your IT system requires it. If you don't have any internet connections, you can use set server time as your computer time. So right there, it says the current date and time is now this. Daylight savings, I have that off because I'm in Brisbane. Code page, English, region, global, or China, you get to choose. Login screen, you get to choose the backgrounds you'd like. It's cool, not necessary. Storage and snapshots, that will launch the snapshots area that we were in. Security, I have deny connections from this list. I don't have anything on there, but I have it to automatically auto-ban users that try to log in too much with incorrect passwords. So I'm going to hit apply here, then go into network access protection, and I say if you have too many logins in 10 minutes for everything, actually, everything. And you know, I'm a bit aggressive. I block people off for a whole day. So right there I said if you have more than 5 login attempts within a matter of 10 minutes, that sounds to me like you're trying to guess the password too much. And I block the IP address for a whole day. This might be a bit too aggressive for people like you, so probably maybe block it for an hour, half an hour, 5 minutes, you decide. But for me, I like to be a bit more secure, and I'm happy to wait a day to not log back in. Here we got prompted to have system logs for the IP addresses, and I just enabled that. You can also set up a password policy here. Personally, I don't need that. I'm happy with myself. Now let's look into hardware. The one thing I do here is I tend to just reduce the brightness of the LEDs to around 5%.
Audio test.
Cool. Now inside smartphone, I've never run into any issues playing with the fans, and they've never gotten too noisy for me, but I always put it into quiet mode just in case the fans want to be a bit more aggressive than I like. But to be honest, I haven't noticed much of a difference in my stage. Maybe if you run in a hot environment, put it on performance mode or normal mode, or if you have a lot of SSD drives in there, performance mode. But for me, as a basic guy, quiet mode seems to work really well for my configuration. The key thing to do is have automatically adjust fan speed turned on, because that will let the system increase the fan speed if it requires. Expansion cards will be listed in this section over here. For now, I don't have any expansion cards plugged in. So EUP is disabled by default, and what that does, it means that you can use features such as wake up on LAN, which means you can request the NAS drive, if it's turned off, to automatically turn on over the network. Pretty cool stuff. For me, I don't use that feature, so I like to save as much power as possible, so I have EUP enabled. Notification Center allows you to set up reminders when certain actions occur. You can get an email for when something happens. For me, since I'm connecting my NAS drive directly to my computer, I don't use any of these features, and I don't like my NAS being connected to the internet too much for privacy issues. So I'm going to skip this section. Firmware update. This one is a fun one to check from the start. So I like to have my firmware updates disabled because I don't like the server constantly pinging, but I do have a manual system where once a month I do check for the update myself. So check for update right now. Can't be performed because you don't have a network connection, but after we set up networking for the internet, you'll be able to do this feature. Backup restore, it allows you to back up all of your settings after you fine-tuned it and restore it. External devices, you can plug in USB external drives, all that kind of stuff. However, if your drive uses exFAT format, you will need to pay for an upgrade, and I've got a video on exactly how to do that as well. System status, that launches this beautiful menu and tells you all about your wonderful system. Look at that, quad core, 4 cores. I feel powerful. Serial number, 8 GB RAM, using dual memory, 4 GB each, firmware, all that kind of goodness. Network status, gonna get into that in a second. All these settings, hardware information, this is cool. This is all your temperatures. You find out how fast the fans are going. Mine's going at 300 RPM, which is insanely quiet, very, very quiet. And the CPU is going at 1500. So everything seems cool and in control. By contrast, I'm just going to log into my 4-bay QNAP 472XT, and I can see that it's only got one system fan, and that one's going at 800 revs per minute, and that's on its quiet mode. So The reason why this NAS drive is insanely quiet is because although it has 2 fans, they run at more than half the speed, which means it's a lot quieter. So I do recommend this 8-bay NAS already if you're interested in noise levels. System logs, we've enabled that, and this pretty much just tells you every single action by which user and the IP address, all that kind of stuff. So that's good stuff. I like it here. Resource monitor, that's another fun one. To be honest with you, I don't use much resources on my current NAS, and that's a Pentium Gold dual core, so I'm not expecting to be using lots of CPU resources here. But not only that, you get to see all the processes that's running, so you can find out if there's any applications doing too much in the background. Maybe you installed something from the App Store and you might want to consider not using it anymore. You get to find out your network, how much people are connecting, how much files they're transferring, if you have a graphics card plugged in, your memory usage levels, maybe you need an upgrade, all that kind of stuff. So you can get a lot of knowledge just by this screen. And there's an option over here, add this NAS to QCenter to retain records, and QCenter is another advanced monitoring tool. For example, over here on my current NAS drive, I can see my system's in good condition. I've used up 25 terabytes with half terabyte free. My CPU usage is always at less than 25%. And these are my IP addresses that are connected. You can go ahead and go through all of these different reports, finding out exactly what's going on in your system. And License Center, if you do purchase any licenses, for example, I've got an exFAT license on my other NAS, it will slot in there. By default, you get 8 external cameras for video surveillance free with this NAS, so you can install that, and so you get that out of the box and you can monitor your usage here. Next up is privilege. Let's tab over here. You get users. Currently I've only got 1. However, on my other NAS, I have multiple users because I have a user for each time machine backup share that I allow. And what that means is I can have a storage quota, which means I only want to allow 1 terabyte of data being backed up to each shared folder. So I do that on a per user policy. Here you can modify the network and file services. So out of the box, we set up SMB for Windows and AFP for Mac. So it says right here, I've got my NAS server, work group, and that's Microsoft Networking, SMB, and I've got AFP, and it's got the standard services. For Linux, you can also enable NFS, and it's all customizable here. You can enable and disable these services. You can also enable SSH if you want to log into your NAS drive. What I recommend is actually modifying the port number if you are enabling SSH, because viruses, they tend to use the standard default ports. So just by modifying it, maybe adding another 00 or 0, just picking a different port will make it slightly more secure. In service discovery, you can enable UPnP discovery device. What that means is in Windows, it will automatically put it in Windows Explorer, and Bonjour is Mac's implementation of this, so you can enable it, and that means as soon as someone gets plugged into the same network of the NAS, they'll see it listed in Finder or Windows Explorer. So for example, let me launch a new Finder window. Network. You can see that it's already listed as Q872N, AFP and SMB. FTP, I don't use FTP because I can connect using SMB and all that stuff, but if you have a service, but if you like that as a service, you can enable it there. Network recycle bin. Now I love this. What that means is by default, when you delete a file, it gets moved into your recycle bin of your shared folder, and you get to pick a retention period where after a certain number of days, it will automatically delete the file. So I like my retention period to be 30 days, and I check it at midnight when no one could be using the NAS. I don't exclude any files because I want everything to get deleted to save as much space as I can. So I hit apply and it automatically apply to any file. So any file that's older than 30 days is going to get deleted. And here in applications, you can customize the applications, and there's loads of cool stuff. You can have a web server, SQL server, all that kind of stuff. But the main one I use, and it hasn't actually hit any positives yet, but I just always enable the antivirus, and you can have it to automatically update its definitions every day, every week, every month, or you can manually do it yourself. The most important part, of course, is in scan jobs. You want to add a scan job, so I'm going to give it all over here, click next, and you get to pick how often you want your antivirus software to run and check through to see if there's any viruses. So I'll run it weekly at 2 AM and every Monday. And it's going to scan all the files. You can exclude any specific folders, and you can get scan compressed files and deep scan document files, and have a handling situation to automatically either quarantine the file or just report it. Personally, I want to avoid any false positives and messing up my data around, so I want to only report the viruses, give me a notification, and I can handle it myself. So the next feature I want to show you is network and virtual switch. So there's basic mode and advanced mode, and pretty much finish. I don't want to view the quick start anymore, but this shows you your network connection speeds. So it says right here, I'm connected to adapter 1, which is the 5 GBE connection. However, because I'm using a 1 GBE dongle, it's actually going to only go as fast as 1 GBE. However, when I change that up to a 10 GBE dongle, it's going to go to its maximum rate, which is 5 GBE. So now I'm pumping it through a 10 GBE adapter, so its network speed is 5 Gbps. 10 GBE. I'll wait a little while, then cycle through the ports, and I can see I've got a new adapter 4 IP. And look at it there, we have a new adapter 4 10 GBE. Now what you should also do is go into configure and select jumbo frame as 9000. So you just wait a little while for it to disconnect and reconnect, and now you're in, and we fully set up 10 GBE with jumbo frames. Alright, so by default over SMB, a hard disk drive gets between 240 to 300 megabytes a second write, and read we get over 200 megabytes a second. Looking at our SSD, however, we get a sustained over 1000 megabytes a second write, and our read speeds, we're getting over 500, definitely over 600 megabytes a second read. Alright, to access the internet, I'm just going to be trying out a few USB modems. So this is an unbranded one from eBay, and I'll plug it in and see if it works. Alright, once that USB dongle was plugged in, nothing appeared on the screen, so it goes to show that that's not a compatible device. What you should do is go to the compatibility list of QNAP site, put in your product type, and select what category of device you're looking for, and they'll have a list of all the recommended devices that work for them. So now I'm going to try out a D-Link and see if that one works. Now the D-Link device that I'm using isn't actually on the compatible list, but after about a minute, it just randomly started working, so that's good news. There you go, we're connected on Wi-Fi. So now that we're connected on Wi-Fi, let's see how fast we can go. Getting around 15 to 16 megabytes a second. Alright, just thought I'd show you some of the apps you can install on this QNAP device. You got Chrome for some reason, because you can connect this QNAP to a HDMI, so you can watch it on your TV, so you can connect Chrome. You got Facebook, Firefox, Google Cloud Storage. You've even got things like Mega Upload and Plex, that's a favorite. You got database, Postgre, SQL. You can even install Node.js. All different versions there, and OwnCloud, that's a big provider, PhotoStation, so you can view things like Google Photos on your NAS drive. Lots of different apps to use. Probably my favorite is Hybrid Backup Sync, and that will allow you to make a backup of everything that's on your NAS, or select drives to OneDrive, Dropbox, Google Drive. My favorite app, of course, is the Cloud Backup application, and it's very useful. Now, what's cool about this Cloud Backup system is that you can compress and encrypt the files being uploaded to the cloud. The benefits of compressing it means that you upload it a lot faster, and the benefits of encrypting it is that if for some reason someone hacks into your cloud backup account, they can't out of the box see what your files are. They'll have to decrypt it first. All right, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this in-depth guide into the world of QNAP, QTS software. And to be honest with you, we just really scratched the surface. There's so much you can do on these NAS drives, from virtualization to installing video encoding software yourself. If you want guides on that, leave a comment below. Let me know what kind of stuff you'd like to learn about with these amazing NASes. And check out the companion videos below, which teach you how to set up Wi-Fi access and cloud backup solutions. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed the show.